So I finally got the Sherman. This is a ship that I've been actually very excited to play. This destroyer has Austin guns, including the shell arcs and the sap. So you're going to notice throughout this entire video how insane this ship is in terms of DPM and the ease of use of these guns. I've had a really good time with this ship so far, and I've only played these 2 games, but I'm very excited to play it again. The odd torpedoes are really not much of a downside since I've gone pretty full gunboat on this ship. Not completely. I still have some of the nice to haves like concealment and superintendent, but I still am taking, of course, the extra range since this is such a usable range because of these shell arcs. It is really nice. And of course, the massive strength is this sap. It absolutely crushes people. Salvos are often in that 1,000 to 2,500 damage, depending on how many shells actually hit. So even though there's only 3 guns, and, well, that's pretty low compared to most tier 10 DDs, especially the DPM focused ones, like Marceau, 8 guns. Like, that's more than double, but this reload is really what makes up for it. Of course, the torpedoes can add some decent chip damage in, but relying on that kind of thing seems like something I'm not going to be looking for. The sap, getting on people's broadsides, really is the bread and butter here. And the sap at this caliber even does pen 32 millimeters of armor. So assuming I'm catching some broadside battleships, I'm actually going to be full penning most of their upper belt armor, certainly the superstructure, often the bow and stern armor as well. So a very dangerous destroyer to leave on your flank. Of course, you'll also notice that it has 28,000 HP, which is pretty high, especially considering gearing with a similar build is in that 22,000 HP. And of course, doesn't have the insane gunpowder. But again, gearing is a hybrid ship. It's not this DPM focused one. Daichi, of course, is pretty good at starting fires on this thing, at least as far as I've seen so far. But realistically, I think I want to be running sap. Of course, there will be a full detailed ship review for this ship as soon as I get some more games and a better feel for how the ship plays. But for now, I really wanted to show you these first 2 games because they were actually really amazing. As you'll notice, the shell tracers are red, meaning we are running Halsey. So getting Confederate actually results in a 20% better reload, which is just absurd in this ship. It's just a continuous rain of fire, and it does a lot of damage. I certainly did have some concerns about the total damage output, how effective this would be, especially in comparison to other ships like some of the Småland and Ragnars of the world, the Marceau, Kleber, that kind of thing. These gunboat DDs that are very well established as being very good. I was thinking that the smaller caliber, fewer guns, no heal, no improved damage saturation like the French destroyers get. I was a little worried. And then I got myself into this awkward, horrible situation where I'm one of the last ships alive and the entire enemy team is, well, closing down on us here. I have found that dealing with submarines is next to impossible in this ship, along with every other surface ship. The depth charges drop off the back, so I really have to be on top of these submarines if I want to do any damage. And that's really not possible when the entire enemy team is shooting at me. So taking out these submarines is very difficult. So I decide to fire at the low health Alaska. And even at these max range shots, we're getting 1,400 damage, 700, 400 damage. Some of those salvos are just when one shell hits. But if we get multiple hitting, it is incredible, this sap output, and it's very scary. So make sure you actually angle to this ship. It has to be respected, since I do believe I take out the Alaska here, even at max range. I'm still getting used to these arcs, of course, but as I do, I'm sure it's going to get even more dangerous. But you'll notice these salvos on the submarine, I'm hitting more shells more consistently, and our damage output is very bad. And there's Confederate. So here we go. You ready to see the insanity that is Sherman reload? Yeah, so I don't even have the full DPM build. I don't have the Fearless Brawler. upgrades. That would give me another 10% reload on top of this, and I'm actually missing another 5% reload on the captain. So it could be even more insane. Getting ourselves pinged by both the submarines at the same time, managing to dodge the first set of torpedoes, but I actually don't notice the second torpedo from the other submarine behind me, and that manages to take me out. But I certainly was shocked at how long I was able to live in that situation, given this ship doesn't have those survivability upgrades like the French destroyers and their saturation, or a heal like a lot of the other gunboat DDs do. This is just a large HP pool and pretty decent DPM. And it's really not even fast, as you're going to see. It's a very slow destroyer that takes a while to turn, and yet I was able to live quite a while there with a lot of ships shooting at me. So I was pretty happy and felt pretty good after that game. That was actually my first one, and I definitely thought this ship was going to be very good. Since that game really wasn't so great from a overall meta perspective, right? We lost most of our ships early on, and then it was really just the enemy team cleaning us up near the end. This game, however, is going to be much better, much closer. I'm using an island to get close to this cap. We do have a 5-kilometer hydro, I should mention that. It's not, you know, a 6-kilometer hydro like the Z52 would have, but 5 kilometers is still pretty decent. And I did notice the Schlieffen was here, so I don't want to be taking a fight inside that secondary range. It's pretty scary, so I don't even open up on the destroyer. I just run away, hold my nerve, and I actually do go undetected. And in our second game, playing this ship, I actually am going to get 2 more torpedo hits. So in a ship where I don't think that focus should be torpedoes at all, I'm actually getting a lot of torpedo hits. So 30k there from those 2 hits. And I think there might be another one later on in this game. But moving forward, let's see what we can actually do against a submarine. To actually spot a submarine, well, we have to get within his detection range. And then, of course, try and pop hydro. He was spotting us, so our hydro does reach out when he's on the surface to that 5-kilometer range. Once the submarine dives, though, an odd thing happens. If he's at maximum depth, our hydro only spots him within the 2-kilometer guaranteed detection radius. And at maximum depth, these submarines actually don't get spotted inside that 2-kilometer radius if you don't have hydro up, which is insane. I don't want this video to just be focused on how insane and broken and untested and poorly designed submarines are, but it's a little hilarious when my destroyer that is trying to go take out that submarine can't actually catch up with it while it's underwater. You can see I'm chasing him. I'm trying to get my depth charges onto him, and I actually end up doing very little damage, and it's my battleships with their anti-submarine warfare planes that are going to be doing the major damage. So I'm doing my job of spotting, but this sort of spotting would not be possible if this submarine didn't just YOLO into our formation here. Try and think about trying to take out that submarine and spotting that submarine like that if they were playing like a traditional destroyer. Think about if that submarine was playing where the enemy Småland was. Playing close to teammates, spotting, sending torpedoes out, trying to play around teammates. There's no way I could go stand on top of him with hydro activated to actually take him out, or at least get my teammates to take him out. It's crazy how tough submarines are to deal with in this game. So as a destroyer player, I want to avoid them as much as possible. Unless they full YOLO in for my cluster of teammates, then I can go spot relatively easily, assuming that the enemy team isn't too close and I can actually get that spotting off without taking too much damage. Because of course, I'm on the surface. I'm vulnerable to taking damage. The submarine really is not. So I will leave it there, but I was shocked at that kind of engagement between myself in a destroyer and the submarine surrounded by my entire team. It seems a little bit ridiculous. Of course, we're going to get into the cap now. We've pushed the enemy team back. I think that's the most difficult part of Sherman play, is going to be learning when to push, when to take caps, when to contest ground, and when to just hang back a little bit. The ship does not have the best concealment. I think it's somewhere in that 6.7 kilometer range with the full build. I have both concealment upgrades and of course running camo, and that's not great. So YOLOing into these caps is not going to be a good idea. You don't have the longer range radar like a small end or a Ragnar does. You don't have a heal like those ships do. So it's much more important to conserve HP earlier on. Here we're going to be taking a ton of damage from Schlieffen secondaries that I have no clue how they got over this island. Those little sandbars on the side of islands often stop my secondary battleships from firing. As many of you know, I've played a lot of secondary battleships, so I'm pretty used to islands of any sort blocking the secondary fire completely. And yet this massive island, the Schlieffen could get his secondaries over and hit us actually pretty hard. We take about 5k damage there from those Schlieffen secondaries, though. I was not too happy about that, I gotta say. But continuing on, you'll notice that I'm just constantly firing. And I think that is going to be the way to play this ship because these arcs are so good. As I play this ship, I will get better at aiming. As you can see, we're missing quite a lot here on the small end, finally getting a couple hits at max range. And they're actually doing pretty okay damage when they do hit. So for really good players, for people who know how to lead these destroyer guns, people with a lot of practice is what I'm trying to say too. It's going to be a very terrifying ship to play against because these Austin arcs are incredibly useful, even out to 15 kilometers. It's somewhere in a 10-second lead time out to 15 kilometers, which is more than usable. That is not hard to hit things at all. Cruisers, battleships, very, very easy to hit at max range. And even, I think, destroyers out to 10 to 12 kilometers aren't going to be very difficult to hit at all. We're up to 87k damage here. Not great, but okay considering the enemy team was really just running away from this flank. Now we get to deal with the enemy team who's pushing into us. Since we still have control over the B cap, they will have to push in eventually, and that's going to be where this thing gets really, really scary. And who knows, we might actually end up getting a Confederate in this game as well. Yeah, 2 back-to-back Halsey Confederate games seems kind of insane. But even here, at 9-kilometer range, this lead time is very, very easy. And in fact, I do manage to collect the small end, even with my, well, probably not amazing use of swapping ammo types. I was getting a little too cute with it, trying to optimize HE when he's angled, SAP when he's showing broadside. Really should have just been firing SAP and just going for it at that point, really. I probably wasted a little bit of time, but I did collect the destroyer anyway. These sorts of things are gameplay, experiential learning experiences for me, where I need to learn how to play a ship, when to swap ammo types, when to smoke, when to go for torps, when to be aggressive, when to play passive. These are all things that I'm trying to learn in the first couple of games. So that's one of the main reasons I'm not going to be putting out a review for a little while on this thing. I do want to feel very comfortable in it before I actually make a review and kind of talk about the playstyle, what you should be thinking about before picking this ship up. But so far, if you like gunboat DDs and you're okay with the slower DDs that aren't the French destroyer types that fly around the map at Mach speed, this is a very good ship. The guns do a ton of damage. You can see we're rotating fires on this Kansas, and we actually got ourselves a double fire left on him. So he's going to be going down very, very quickly here. And I don't think we actually pick it up. So unfortunately missing out on a kill there. But those kind of fires are absolutely insane. And here you can just see the SAP damage output on a Conqueror. It's disgusting. We actually land another torpedo. I don't know what that was on. Maybe the A gear? Pretty crazy landing torps, this many torps in just 2 games with the Sherman. I was not expecting that at all. I just kind of chuck them out and hope for the best. But this SAP damage against broadside ships with 32 millimeters of plating, it's gross. It does so much damage. Up to 158k, just like that. Really, really good at farming ships pushing in. The ship is really, really strong. And of course, well, we ran into a destroyer. You'll notice the SAP actually bouncing here. We got 3 bounces, and then as soon as he opens up the angle, well, yeah, there comes the 2,000 damage salvos. It's pretty disgusting in these destroyer fights. And, of course, there's our Confederate, so... yeah, this is pretty fun. If you have Halsey and you can put them on the Sherman, I think you definitely should. Confederates, I don't think are too hard to get in this ship since it's very easy to reposition and spread out damage between a lot of targets of opportunity. You're often going to be fighting destroyers, which of course are very easy to get Confederates on, since you're only needing to do a certain percentage of, I believe, 6 ships HP pool. I actually don't remember exactly the Confederate requirements, but destroyers I find to be very good at getting Confederates. And just look at the damage pour in. My goodness, this poor egg here. We don't even pen his upper belt, and we're just hitting his superstructure that's probably already saturated. And yeah, pretty disgusting. We farmed up nearly 200k in this game. So pretty amazing start to my games with the Sherman. We'll see how it goes as I play this ship more and get out a review. But for now, Sherman is really good and I think a lot of fun. So if you've been considering it, maybe wait for the full review. But so far, my initial impressions, the ship is great. And I think most people are going to enjoy it. As for the build that I've started off with, I played it pretty conservatively, going for concealment as well as superintendent here, but I didn't really use a lot of my smokes. I was actually playing open water a lot of the time, trying to reposition, attain flanks, that kind of thing. So I am using Adrenaline Rush and Main Battery and AA Expert to boost my gun power, range, and of course the reload with AR. But if I wanted to go for a full DPM build, which I'm definitely going to be trying, I would replace Superintendent for Main Battery AA Specialist, giving us a 5% on our guns. And I'm actually going to consider Concealment, swapping it for Fearless Brawler. The Concealment at 6.5 with the full build is just okay. And removing this will be definitely well over 7 kilometers, which I think is still usable considering the actual arcs and the shell velocity on these main guns. It's not hard to hit things at 15 kilometers, so I'm okay with playing a little farther back due to the worse concealment. And then I will, of course, be gaining a pretty insane damage upgrade here, taking another 10% well spotted and another 5%. So a further 15% boost to our reload, or something close to that, depending on how the math works out, if it's additive or multiplicative. Of course, I'm running Main Battery Mod 3 here. I don't think double range is the way to go. You should probably try to position so the 15 kilometers is just fine to be used. But I suppose 17-ish kilometers, somewhere in there, would be kind of hilarious given these arcs are so good. Battleships at the back of the map would still be pretty easy to hit, I think, with that range. Of course, the rest of the build, pretty standard DD upgrade stuff, especially Aiming Systems Mod 1 with only 3 guns firing at a time. We definitely want to improve our accuracy. That is the Sherman so far. Only a couple games in, but man, this thing is a good time. Let me know your experience with this ship if you already have it, and thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.